Welcome back to the channel, everybody. It's been a week since a customer has made a purchase in your mobile game and you're beginning to get worried. Should you offer that customer free virtual currency to reactivate their spend, or will that cannibalize future revenues from that customer? As an online marketer, it's your job to craft outbound spender reactivation strategies, and the analysis behind me is a perfect roadmap on how to implement the correct strategies. So what this does is it looks at your online business's monetizers, and it looks at the propensity of which are willing to make a purchase by their last purchase date, or days since their last purchase. So for example, it asks, if it's been a week since a customer has made a purchase, how likely are they to spend again? What about after 2 weeks? What about after 3 weeks? What about after a month? So with this information, you can retarget your spender audience more effectively. And I'm going to show you how to do this exact thing in MySQL. Okay, so starting out, all we need is just a revenue table. So just revenue transactions per customer. Let me show you a few records here. And we need a couple of things. We need the very first purchase date per spender and how many total transactions life to date they've had. So we're going to do a min on this, min purchase date, and that's going to be their first purchase date. And then we're just going to do a count, and this is just life to date transactions. We're going to group all of this by customer. And we're going to do a halving. They must have at least 5 life to date transactions, because we want to look at a stable spender cohort. We're not interested in people who purchase just once or twice and never purchase again. Okay, great. So we have customers, their first purchase date, and their life to date transactions, which must be greater than 5. Let's change that to greater than or equal to 5. I think that's fine. So 5 or higher total transactions with your online business. Okay, we're doing good. Let's call this subselect monetizers. We really don't need to reference this life to date transactions column because we used it in this halving statement here. So it's already been applied to filter our data, so we can kind of effectively forget about it. Now, what we need to do next is we need to use a table of dates. So in our case, it's called dim date. And we're going to use this to bring in all leading dates from each customer's first purchase date. So let's do that now. Let's look at a few records. Now let's look at one customer. Let's order by date from table 2. Okay, great. So this customer's first purchase date was October 19th, 2022. And then we have all leading dates that are greater than that value. So the first starting value from our date column from table 2 is October 20th, 1 day later, stretching all the way up through the present. So what we want to do with each one of these dates is reference when was the last time that this customer purchased, how many days ago, and then did they purchase on this specific day. So in this example, our first date is October 20th, 2022. When was the last time they made a purchase? Well, that was a day ago, and it was their first purchase, which was October 19th, 2022. And then part 2 is, did they purchase on October 20th, 2022? So again, to restate this is a 2-part question. How many days ago did they make a purchase? And in this instance, it was 1 day ago, and it was their first purchase date. And did they purchase on this actual date, which is October 20th, 2022? So we're going to do that now using revenue data. Let's call this purchasers. We'll bring in the column names. And then we're going to use this revenue transaction table again. Let's look at a few records. And we'll do a left join over to this revenue transaction table. And just call this revenue. And we'll do it on purchasers.customer_ID equals revenue.customer_ID. And we want the revenue, so the purchase date, to be less than or equal to this date value right here. Our date value from the first table. So from our subselect, this right here. Okay. Now here is where it gets really fun. So the very first thing we need to figure out is when was the last time this specific customer made a purchase based on this date. And this date is a value that starts 1 day after their purchase date and goes through up the present date. So we will say case we'll say all of these purchase dates from the revenue transaction table, when all of those dates are less than this date, then take the max value. We will write it like this. Okay, now let me take the opportunity to explain this again. So this join is bringing across all revenue transactions or purchase dates that are less than or equal to the date in our first table. So right here. Then we are writing a case statement and saying, hey, if this purchase date is less than this date, right, happened in the past, so days since last purchase, then take the max value, right? So it's asking and returning the last time a purchaser made a purchase. So their last purchase date, effectively. Then the next thing we need to do is ask, did they purchase on this specific day? This is part 2 of the question. Because remember, we're bringing across revenue transactions and purchase dates from table 2 that are less than but also equal to this purchase date here. So equal to this. So we can answer part 2 of our question, which is, did they purchase on this actual purchase date? So is there a table 2 revenue transaction? So this that equals this date value here. Okay, so let's label our columns now. We can just call this last purchase date. And then we can just call this monetizer. And remember, we need to group this. Grab this. We'll call this ag because we're ready to aggregate all of our data now. So we need to create a column that's days since last purchase. So we'll do a date diff, right, on the ag.date and the ag.last purchase date. And then we're going to do just a count of customers. And then we can just sum our monetizer field. Let's go ahead and group all of this. And we are ready to go. So this is our full query. I will make sure to add this as a link in the description as a MySQL practice file. Let's see if we can get a slightly better visual. Here we are. Okay, let's run this. Okay, here is our data. So let's go ahead and move this over to Excel. Let's create another days since last purchase field and turn this into a string. Great. And to explain this data, what this says is Let's take all of the monetizers that are 8 days away from their last purchase date and see which of them purchased on that day. So we had about 1,000 customers or monetizers, 1,069, who were 8 days away from their last purchase date. Now, of the 1,069 monetizers, how many of them purchased on that date? Just 30. And you'll see that typically this number falls and diminishes the further we are from a customer or purchaser's last purchase date. So we'll do percent monetize. Just take daily monetizers divided by customers. So I want to explain this again. So for example, if you purchased 2 days ago, let's say you're part of the 1,406 monetizers who are 2 days away from the last time they bought, how likely are they to buy today? And it's about 5%. So this differs greatly from the 561 customers that are 30 days from their last purchase date, with only 1% of them monetizing, which is an 80% decline or decrease from this number up here. So let's go ahead and chart this so we can visualize this data a little better. Let's just look at 6 months of data. Okay, so here is our completed analysis, and I love what we're looking at because it allows an online marketer to create effective strategies with this information. So if you know that generally, at least in this demo business, if a monetizer is 1 day away from their last purchase date, then 5% of them monetize that day. However, as days since last purchase increases, the likelihood that these monetizers make a purchase decreases. So what this allows you to do is look at this information and say, if it's been 7 days since a monetizer has purchased, I'm going to give them this amount of free virtual currency. If it's 14 days since their last purchase, a little more free virtual currency. If it's 30 days, give them the house, give them a sweet deal, because the likelihood that they're going to purchase again is at 1% or sub 1%. So if you found this tutorial helpful, please continue to like and subscribe. Thank you very much for all the support.